1. Buried Alive Secret. In Buried Alive matches, the rules are simple. One wrestler has to bury the other completely under a pile of dirt. There have been 5 Buried Alive matches in history, and The Undertaker has participated in every single one of them. He's lost 3 times, but even after being buried, he's always returned like nothing ever happened. Fans would see the dirt pour over the grave and the match would end, but behind the scenes, it was all about smart planning and hidden exits. The first trick is that the grave is always built on what looks like a hill. This makes it really deep, allowing the wrestlers to move around when the camera isn't focused on them. Moreover, the insides might look like dirt, but they're actually made up of fabric which the wrestler tears to enter a secret compartment. In the case of The Undertaker, he would slip through the hidden opening right before the final load of dirt fell. His opponent would make sure to do something crazy at this time to distract the viewers. So while it looked like he was buried alive, in reality, The Undertaker was quietly sneaking away to a secret room. 2. Fake signs. Signs have always been a big part of wrestling culture. Whether it's showing love for a favorite wrestler or just trying to get a laugh on TV, fans love bringing signs to events. Most of the ones you see in the crowd are 100% real and made by actual fans, but not all of them. WWE sometimes plants their own signs in the audience to help steer the narrative or hype up something they want to promote. One example happened during an episode of Raw in 2018. One fan posted on social media that WWE staff were actually handing out signs that read, "We want women's tag championships." A few months later, WWE officially announced the launch of the women's tag team titles. So while the signs may have looked like organic fan demand, it turns out WWE had a little help in making sure the message was loud and clear. 3. WWE ring secret. People often wonder how WWE superstars can take brutal slams and still get up like it's nothing, and the answer lies in the ring itself, which is specially designed to have a bit of flexibility. Underneath that canvas is a layer of plywood and a little bit of padding. But what really gives the ring its bounce are a carefully engineered set of steel beams that are designed to flex slightly. While it's not like landing on a trampoline, it's definitely better than hitting bare concrete. The sounds you hear when there's impact is also exaggerated, just to make the move seem more powerful than it is. During Bad Blood 1997, before the iconic Undertaker vs. Shawn Michaels match was about to begin, Sergeant Slaughter, who was the on-screen commissioner, decided to check inside the ring to make sure no one was hiding. But then the camera zoomed in to show an amplifier, which was clearly used to exaggerate the moves happening in the ring. So it may look like just a regular platform on TV, but the ring is one of the most carefully engineered tools in wrestling. Without that bounce and structure, those big stunts would be far more dangerous, and injuries would be far more common. 5. Wrestlers whispering. If you've ever noticed 2 wrestlers whispering to each other during a headlock or after a slam, that's because matches aren't entirely choreographed from start to finish. And wrestlers actually communicate while wrestling to keep the match smooth and safe. While some matches have a basic structure or set of key moments, a lot of the flow comes down to real-time decisions in the ring. Wrestlers often whisper their next moves or even check on their opponents in case of an injury. The better the wrestler, the more natural and discreet their communication becomes. This live communication is part of what makes wrestling so difficult. Not only do wrestlers have to remember moves and sell them convincingly, but they also have to keep a conversation going under physical stress, while entertaining millions of fans without letting the illusion fall apart. 6. Why do wrestlers look oily? It's not sweat, and it's definitely not just lighting. Wrestlers apply baby oil or other oils to their bodies before heading to the ring because it makes their muscles look more defined under the harsh lighting of a TV studio. The sheen reflects the light and adds to the superhero-like appearance that WWE tries to project. But it's not only about aesthetics. The oil also helps prevent some types of skin abrasions during holds and grapples, although it can sometimes make moves harder to execute, especially when trying to maintain grip. Some wrestlers prefer a matte finish and skip it, but many use oil as part of their presentation. WWE has its own makeup and grooming protocols backstage, and in many cases, applying oil is just as important as lacing up boots or warming up. It might seem like a small detail, but that glossy look is part of the package that makes wrestlers look larger than life once the camera starts rolling and the show begins. 7. What happens after a match? The moment the camera's cut and a match ends, a lot goes on behind the curtain that fans don't see. Wrestlers are checked immediately by medical staff, even if the match went smoothly, to ensure there are no hidden injuries. Producers often speak with the talent to discuss what went well and what needs improvement. Wrestlers might ice their bodies, hydrate, or just sit down to breathe after pushing themselves physically. If the match was important, especially on pay-per-view, wrestlers might evaluate their own performances by reviewing clips of it backstage with coaches or producers. Meanwhile, others are already preparing for the next segment of the show. Some wrestlers may even have to rush to change and go back out for interviews or promos. There's very little rest time, especially during live events, or in other words, the show never stops. 8. Undertaker's casket escape. The 1998 Royal Rumble had a match which stole the spotlight from even the 30-man Battle Royale. Kane actually locked The Undertaker inside a casket and set it on fire in front of a stunned crowd. The visual was terrifying, and fans were left asking the same question: how did The Undertaker survive? The answer lies in how the casket was specially designed for that moment. What most people didn't know was that the casket had a hidden trapdoor. It was positioned right next to the ring, and while Kane and Paul Bearer pretended to seal it shut, they were actually blocking the camera's view so The Undertaker could quietly slip under the ring through the trapdoor. Kane ignited the flames shortly after, but The Undertaker was long gone by then, making the whole thing look supernatural. 9. Limo explosion. Remember that wild WWE moment when Vince McMahon's limo suddenly blew up on live TV? Yeah, that one had everyone talking. Of course, it wasn't actually live when the explosion happened. WWE pulled a sneaky edit by cutting from the real shot to a pre-recorded one right as the camera switches angles, from behind Vince to a wide shot of him getting in. If you pay close attention, there are a few giveaway signs. In the live shot, there are 2 trailers behind the fence. But when the limo explodes, one of them magically disappears. The fence looks a little different too, and there's even a random tree that just shows up out of nowhere. Here's how they pulled it off safely. After Vince stepped into the limo, the camera stayed perfectly still. He quietly slipped out the other side, and once everyone was in the clear, boom, the explosion went off. WWE made it look like the limo blew up the second he shut the door. And if you pause at just the right moment, you can actually catch a tiny glimpse of the explosion device tucked in the frame. 10. Dead Diesel. One of the creepiest moments in WWE was when Diesel opened a casket and saw a dead body inside. It was super unsettling because the person in the casket looked exactly like him, and fans had no idea how WWE pulled it off so well. The trick was pretty simple. Raw wasn't live back then, so WWE had some freedom with filming. At some point before or after the show, they recorded Kevin Nash actually lying in the casket. Later, they edited those close-up shots into the scene. Since the camera was zoomed in, you couldn't tell it wasn't happening in real time. Now for the shots where Diesel is standing and staring at the body, they didn't use any special effects. WWE just put a dummy in the casket, dressed it like Diesel, and shot it from far enough away that it looked convincing. So it was just smart editing and camera angles that made the whole thing feel way more disturbing than it really was. 11. Blade slip-up. At the first Hell in a Cell pay-per-view on October 4th, 2009, Randy Orton and John Cena went at it for the WWE Championship. The match started off really well, but both superstars going hammer and tongs at each other. But then an awkward slip-up ensued that exposed a backstage trick. Right after Orton hit Cena with his signature backbreaker, a tiny razor blade slipped out and landed on the mat. And no, it wasn't some weird piece of gear or a broken part of the ring. It was the kind of blade wrestlers sometimes use to make themselves bleed during matches. The camera caught it for just a second before the referee casually picked it up and tossed it aside like nothing happened. Neither of the guys ended up bleeding, so it's hard to tell if Cena was supposed to use it and just dropped it too early, or if they ditched the plan once it hit the floor. 12. Sin Cara's trampoline. Sin Cara is known for his flashy moves, and unfortunately for botching quite a few of them. But in this case, the mistake wasn't actually on him. During his debut in April 2011, Sin Cara ran down the ramp and jumped into the ring to take out Sheamus. The leap looked great, but the illusion didn't last long. Right before he launched into the air, the cameraman accidentally gave away WWE's little secret by filming a wide shot that clearly showed the trampoline he used to boost his jump. It was supposed to be this seamless, superhero-style entrance, but the exposed trampoline kind of killed the moment. WWE eventually figured it out and started using better camera angles to hide it. But yeah, his first big moment had a rough start. Sin Cara did everything right, but the camera crew made the botch this time. 13. Capsule blood. Blood in WWE is usually real, with blading being one of the most common ways wrestlers make themselves bleed during matches. But there's also another, less common trick to create the effect without actually cutting open. Take what happened in 2016 on Raw when Triple H laid into Roman Reigns hard. The beatdown looked so intense that it seemed like Reigns' head was busted wide open. But thanks to a cheeky fan's video, we now know the truth behind that moment. After Triple H slammed Reigns' head onto the announcer's table, the cameras cut away for a bit. While off camera, a commentator handed Reigns a small blood capsule to bite down on. When the action resumed, Reigns had blood on his head, making it look like he'd been seriously injured. This is a great example of how WWE blends real and staged moments to keep the drama going without pushing wrestlers at unnecessary risk. 14. Leaked script. In 2014, a WWE fan attending a live show stumbled upon something pretty wild. A fully detailed script for that night's episode of Monday Night Raw left unattended backstage. The fan snapped pictures and shared them online, giving the wrestling world a rare behind-the-scenes look at how meticulously WWE plans its shows. The leaked script included everything from who was producing each segment, how long every match was supposed to last, what moves they would use, and even the backstage scenes. It basically revealed the carefully choreographed nature of the show, showing how much control WWE has over the storylines and timing. To this day, no one knows which WWE employee left the script out in the open. 15. Different rings. If you're a die-hard fan, you might have already noticed that WWE uses different rings for televised shows as compared to house events. The reason is simple. WWE has to fit the production needs of each type of show. For live shows like Raw, SmackDown, and other pay-per-views, special care is given to the ring layout with better padding, specific canvas designs, and customized logos to look better on camera. It also has to meet strict safety standards for live audiences and broadcasts. For live events or smaller venues, WWE sometimes uses a lighter or more portable ring that's easier to assemble and transport. The difference may seem minor to fans, but wrestlers can tell the difference in how the ring responds to their moves. WWE's goal is to balance show quality, wrestler safety, and logistics across its busy touring schedule. 16. Controlled crowd reactions. Crowd reactions are a huge part of the WWE experience, but sometimes what you hear on TV isn't exactly how the entire audience feels. WWE uses several methods to encourage specific crowd reactions during live shows, including music cues, camera focus, and announcer prompts. The production team usually cranks up the entrance music for big stars or plays up popular wrestlers to get the crowd hyped. The announcers jump in too, tossing out questions or starting chants to get fans cheering or booing their favorite or not so favorite superstars. Sometimes WWE even pays fans or crew who lead cheers and chants to help energize the crowd. Camera operators focus on enthusiastic fans to create an impression of universal excitement. While the crowd is naturally passionate, these secret techniques make the chants even wilder. 17. Voice training. It's a well-known fact that wrestlers have to scream during promos to make the segment interesting. But have you ever imagined how they manage to keep their voice intact even after all those years of screaming like a maniac? The reason is simple. WWE actually vocal trains their superstars with the help of professionals. The stars are usually coached on how to project their voices without straining their vocal cords, using techniques similar to singers or actors. They're also taught when to scream and when to hold back, balancing their promos skillfully. In addition to this, WWE schedules rest periods and encourages hydration to avoid damage. Some wrestlers even see personalized voice coaches to maintain their speaking skills, meaning WWE cares a lot about their vocal cords. 18. Morrison's back pat. In an April 2021 episode of Raw, Damian Priest faced off against the old duo of John Morrison and The Miz in a handicap match. Toward the end, Priest went for this sick flip over the top rope to hype the crowd, but instead of hitting it clean, he ended up striking Morrison in the head when he landed outside the ring. One may think Morrison got absolutely mad at the botch, but he was actually very cool about it. Morrison quickly gave Priest a little tap to say, "I'm good," and then right away, he jumped back into character like nothing happened. 19. Undertaker's sudden arrival. For years, fans believed The Undertaker had some supernatural ability to appear out of nowhere. The lights would go out, the arena would fall silent except for a chilling gong, and then boom, he's standing right there in the ring, staring straight into the soul of his opponent. It felt extremely real, and some kids even believed he teleported straight from hell. But over time, some of the mysteries started to unravel, mostly thanks to fan-shot videos and eagle-eyed viewers who happened to be sitting near the ring. During those moments of complete darkness, The Undertaker is actually crawling out from underneath the ring where he'd been hiding long before the segment began. In some clips, you can even see production staff helping him get into position or handing him his signature hat and coat. Once the lights return, the fans are too busy screaming to notice what happened in those few seconds of blackout. 20. Backstage moments. Before a big match, wrestlers don't just walk out casually, they have a full warm-up routine backstage. This includes stretching, running through key moves with each other, and going over the plan with producers. Plus, they often psych themselves up by blasting music or even doing vocal warm-ups for promos. It might seem like the show is all about sudden action, but backstage is all about preparation. A lot of wrestlers say the time right before the entrance is the most intense, when they're focused and locked in. It's a side of wrestling fans rarely see, but is key to making the match look good. 21. Announcer's table. When wrestlers slam opponents through announcer's tables, it looks brutal and painful, but those tables are specially rigged to break easily. They're specially crafted before the shows, and have weak points designed to collapse on impact. This significantly reduces the risk of injury so that wrestlers can easily get back up and continue with their match. The Spanish announce table is notorious for being destroyed hundreds of times because it's built with even weaker materials. It's a smart way to combine showmanship with safety. 22. Storyline surprises. WWE storylines are scripted, but big surprises are kept tightly guarded. Only a select few people know major plot twists like surprise returns or championship changes. Sometimes WWE even distributes fake scripts to confuse people who might leak spoilers. Wrestlers may only learn key details minutes before their segment. One great example is the Undertaker vs. John Cena squash match at WrestleMania 24, where the Undertaker had trained extensively for a healthy long match. But just a few hours before the match, he was informed that it would last just a handful of minutes. This left him really annoyed, but the match went on, and he did what he had to do. 23. Development system. Before making it to TV, most WWE wrestlers spend time in the development system like NXT, where they train for months or years. This training covers everything from moves and ring psychology to promo skills and character development. Trainers teach how to take bumps safely, work with different opponents, and connect with the crowd. Wrestlers also learn about backstage etiquette and how live shows operate, making the developmental circuit like a preschool before going to college. 24. Shane McMahon's jump. Let's be honest, when Shane McMahon started climbing to the top of that Hell in a Cell at WrestleMania 32, most fans were thinking the same thing. There's no way he's actually going to jump. But then he stood up there, looked down at The Undertaker on the announce table, and without hesitating, he launched himself into the air like a madman. It was one of the wildest stunts in WWE history, and even though The Undertaker moved out of the way, and Shane crashed right through the table, somehow he didn't break every bone in his body. Turns out, WWE had a little trick hidden in plain sight. Underneath the announce table, there was a camouflaged airbag built into the setup. It wasn't obvious during the live broadcast, but if you look closely in fan footage or slow motion replays, you can actually see the bag deflating just after impact. Shane was still hurt by the impact, but at least he didn't receive any life-threatening injuries. This shows just how committed Shane is for the business, despite being the freaking owner's son. 25. Ring collapse. On a casual SmackDown episode in 2003, Brock Lesnar superplexed Big Show so hard that the ring ended up collapsing. But it wasn't just some accident, rather some clever planning by WWE in advance. The company wanted a WTF moment that would leave the fans with their mouths gaping, and they did just that. Even some guys backstage were fooled by the ring's destruction. To make it happen, WWE's crew weakened the support beams under the ring and set up a timed mechanism to trigger the collapse right on impact. There were also airbags hidden underneath the ring to soften the fall for both men. The spot worked so well, they repeated it a few times since, but that original moment still stands out as one of the most shocking visuals in WWE history. 26. Punch sound effects. Many fans already know about this, but I'll tell it anyway. So in real life, one clean punch can knock you out in an instant. But how can WWE superstars still stand even after eating several punches to the face? The trick is simple. The opponents never actually connect properly, and they use a small trick to sell it. When the opponents go for the punch, they stomp their feet at the same time to make it sound like they've just landed a thunderous strike. It's basically stage combat mixed with some pro-level acting. Another great example is when Sheamus slaps his thighs when he goes for his signature brogue kick. Super kicks, clotheslines, and even headbutts sometimes get the same treatment. If you slow down a replay, you'll spot it more easily. The foot hitting the mat is what you're actually hearing, not the fist. This technique keeps things safe while still looking and sounding intense.